Welcome to the Put to Scale podcast, episode 3. So today's guest is someone really exciting that I've been wanting to get on for a while here now. And it's someone that you probably have seen as well, too. He is someone that notably is seen all around in social media, whether it's on Instagram, I'm mainly seeing him, or on Facebook especially. I've been seeing him being posted in like the Reptile Report, Reptile pages. I mean, you're seeing him and he's blowing up. I mean, he's doing some incredible work. And my guest here today is Nathan Jordan, the photographer and Venomous keeper. Nathan, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Nick. I'm excited to be here. I know I've been looking forward to this. We had a few ups and downs on getting it scheduled.
But, yeah, exactly. Yeah, the past couple of weeks. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's great having you on. Now, I believe you said, I think I saw a couple of weeks ago, you said you're at the Hermitage show in Pennsylvania. Is that correct?
Yeah, I went to Hamburg recently. That was actually the first time I vended a show. My friend Dylan gave me a little section on his table because of the wait list for it.
Okay.
Definitely something I want to keep doing. Vending was a lot of fun. And one of my goals with the photography is like seeing people's reactions, like when they get to see the animals in a different perspective. So getting to see people who I don't have on social media, see the photos and like just their jaw drop or them just get like super excited was awesome.
Right. Yeah, no, that's really cool. But like, so you are from like the east side, so you're like closer to like the Pittsburgh area versus like the Philadelphia area then?
No, other way. I'm next to Philly. I'm actually in Northeast.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Dylan lives out in Pittsburgh, but my girlfriend actually goes to college out in Pittsburgh. Gotcha. So I'm frequenting out that way a little bit more often in the year or so.
Nice. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I was just curious because me personally, I'm from Ohio. So I'm currently living in Michigan. I'm from Ohio. I have family that's near like the border of Pittsburgh Pennsylvania, Ohio area. So, I mean, growing up, I've been kind of like a Steelers Penguins fan. So I was just kind of seeing where you swayed as well too on that if you followed sports. But yeah, that's really cool.
I would say sports wise, I don't follow many. But as growing up, my dad was always a Cowboys fan and then the other half were Steelers. So it's always between those two. And my mom was a Bengals fan, but we don't really hear much about them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No kidding. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. But that's cool though. I mean, that's quite a hike. I mean, driving through Pennsylvania is like, I don't know. I think it's like the toughest state to drive through. I know we drove through to going to New York one year. And I mean, it was just tough to like drive that whole thing. It's like flat. But so I would say, what began first for you? Would it be like your passion for wildlife or would it be your passion for photography?
Definitely passion for wildlife. When I was younger, I was constantly outside. It was always my mom yelling at me to stop picking stuff up. Pennsylvania, we only have the 3 venomous snakes. We have timber rattlesnakes, copperheads, and eastern Massasaugas. Around us, we only have timber rattlesnakes and copperheads. I actually never found a venomous snake in the wild until 2 summers ago.
Really?
As a kid, I was lucky that I never accidentally picked something up that I didn't know.
Right.
But it was constant. Like anytime I had the chance, I was outside looking for stuff, flipping rocks, flipping logs, or just going through the water, see what I could find.
Was that like locally around you? Like, or did you have to like travel out to go?
I live in like the suburbs of Scranton, and we do have like a good section of like the woods near me. Right behind my house, we have a big section of woods that I'd always go up in. And then a block away, I have the river. So
nice. Yeah, I mean, at my mom's old house, basically I was in the suburbs as well too, out in Aurora, Ohio. But the all forested right behind me. I mean, we had 3 different ponds, so I mean, I was always catching like different water snakes and everything like that too. A whole bunch of frogs and toads. So like, I mean, I would literally dive in after these snakes and stuff like that. You'd see them on the trees and then they would just bolt in the water and then you would go after them. I know we had our old dog too. We were walking across the river bend and she walked over these rocks and the one rock moved and it was a snapping turtle. She didn't get hit or anything like that, but she literally walked over the rock. And I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine that. But that's cool though, you know. I mean, I think a lot of people like their interests start in passions. I mean, I think mine too, like start with wildlife and then it kind of expands like, what can I do more with this?
Yeah.
So, and then like the photography, when did that come into play?
So actually I've always wanted a camera going through high school and I knew they were like really expensive. So I didn't feel as though I was like mature enough to handle piece of equipment that would be that expensive. So I kind of waited until December of 2016. That was right when I graduated high school, or I graduated June of 2016. I was like, okay, I'm going away to college. I want to get a camera. So I got the camera. I got a Canon T6 for Christmas.
Okay.
2 days later, I was going to Costa Rica for a study abroad.
Wow.
No,
nice.
I didn't use the camera. So I kept it on like auto mode and just hope for the best on it. Or sometimes I'd like try with different settings.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I did get a lot of good photos with it.
Nice.
I want to go back though, because there's so many I missed. But then I put the camera down for probably about a year and a half. Didn't touch it anymore. Went back to Costa Rica for another study abroad. Brought it with me, and I was like, all right, I definitely need to do this now because I kind of know how to use the camera. Came back from Costa Rica, got busy with school, didn't touch it again. And then November 2019 is when I started doing the studio styled animal portrait photography.
Wow. So it's been relatively recent.
Yeah, but almost a year and a half ish, around there.
But I mean, that to me is shocking because you've hit the ground running. I mean, your portfolio is like through the roof, you know? I mean, that's incredible.
So I owed a lot to people on Facebook. My friend Trey down in Texas, I'd constantly message him on Facebook, be like, hey, like I'm trying this, like, what's your thought on it? And he would explain like what he would do. He gave me a lot of like settings for like flash equipment of what I should try. He actually sent me a strobe he just gifted it to me.
Wow.
And that kind of helped me really get it going. Like, cause I only had one speed light. So I'd just set the flash like right next to me.
Sure.
And I'd get these like really harsh shadows, really like kind of like blue light from it. And then he gave me the strobe and I like changed everything from there. I was like, all right. And I was actually doing a photo shoot with that strobe. I plugged it in, and as soon as I took the first photo, something inside, I forget what part it was, something I've never heard of before, exploded. So the strobe like popped, and there was smoke like pouring out of it. We were in the middle of some guy's house. I was like, oh God, I was like, I have no idea what to do.
Oh God.
I threw it out the window. I was like,
right, fight or flight.
Yeah, I'd rather it be outside and like broken and on fire than like in the house on fire. Yeah. But after that, I was like, all right, I need to get a backup flash. So I ended up ordering one off Amazon. Amazon sent me 2 for the price of 1. Thank you, Amazon.
Right.
And ever since then is when like I realized I was like, this is definitely something I want to keep going with. And Trey, I'd say, was the person that helped me out the most with it. And every now and then, like I'll still keep in contact with them and let them know like, hey, like I'm trying this, and we'll bounce ideas off each other. Yeah, it was definitely something I knew I wanted to do, but like I needed the guidance in the beginning of where to go.
And was that what basically like started the slow started initially with the T6? Like you knew that you wanted to do it, but like you kind of just didn't have like the traction to kind of figure out where to go in terms of direction?
Yeah, so I had the T6 and I had the kit lenses. The kit lenses are only so good. Sure. With like the style I do, you really want a macro lens, which I have this is a Canon 35 millimeter.
Nice.
And then this one is the 100 millimeter. It's actually on the EOS R, which is the camera I shoot on now.
Nice.
And I asked Trey, I was like, I need to know like a good lens. And I gave him like a list of 3 that I was interested in. And me, him, Mike Schultz, and then Zach Herr from ZTH Photography were in a group chat. So we were kind of like bouncing ideas off each other, and everybody suggested getting the 100 millimeter. So it's actually the first like professional lens that I got.
Okay.
And that it changed everything.
Sure.
Like I was able to see so many like details that come out of that lens is insane.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I mean, as a photographer too and stuff like that. I mean, I mainly shoot like for the company I work for. We use Lumix, so we use the GMH5. And we shoot houses and stuff like that. So mainly we use like the Olympus lens, which is just like a wide, like 7 millimeter to like 14 millimeter lens. I mean, you're getting everything. But then like for like the stuff that I personally do, I'll use like my Canon 80D. And then like you said, like kit lenses, yeah, there's only so much you can do with those and everything. And then once I finally branched out and I spent the money, I mean, because I love to do, my main goal before everything kind of hit the fan last year was I had trips planned out west, because I'm a huge fan into like oceanic photography and stuff like that, specifically whales. So I was going to do like orcas. I had some people out there. They're like, yeah, you can stay with us. Come out here. I know all the plot. They're in Seattle. So they're like, I know all the places that we can kind of go. There's like San Juan Highland where you can get like good shots of the southern resident killer whales. So they said, get like a 100 millimeter to a 400 millimeter lens, something like that. They think that was like best. So I've been using that. And I mean, even that for like the photography I've been doing, I mean, it's been game changing in comparison to the kit lens. It's pretty cool. But I mean, I think too, like a lot of people think you have to fork out all this money for gear, you know, but like you can, like you said, you were still taking some incredible shots in your first trip to Costa Rica with the T6 and the kit ones, you know? So, I mean, I think it's just kind of a matter of knowing your gear that you have and then like knowing what to upgrade from there and stuff like that. But that's pretty cool though. Like you've managed to kind of like, I think it's easier to start small and then kind of work yourself up rather than buying all this gear and being like, all right, what do I do with this? You know what I mean?
So that's what I like. Like I like starting with like I don't want to say like a lower model, but the T6 is like slightly outdated now.
Yeah, it's still really popular though. I mean, a lot of people are still buying them used.
So I liked starting with that with the kit lenses. I didn't have like any speed lights or anything. I looked online at just what the prime like settings for that camera and the kit lenses were, because every lens and every camera has like a little range of what settings for like the aperture, we could say.
Yeah,
that'll give you like your most clear photos.
Yeah.
So I kind of based it around that when I use that camera and lens. And that's where I realized like, okay, like I'm definitely gonna start taking this seriously. And I just slowly like upgraded like piece by piece because it's definitely an investment. They're not that cheap. And as I slowly got it, like say I got my 100mm lens, kind of let it pay it off on its own, like by through the prints, or like I did some portrait photography for family members or like people around me.
Nice.
Once I paid off the lens, it was like, all right, I'm going to jump into getting like a new camera body. And I actually got the camera body when we got the first stimulus check. I was going to order the camera body about a month before. And I always actually use, I go on Canon's refurb section.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Canon's refurbs are sometimes just returned and not even like really used.
Right.
And I haven't ever had an issue with anything. Everything works perfectly. So it's like, okay, the one I wanted for the EOS R sold out. So I had to wait a month, and it just happened to be that we got the stimulus check right when they got another EOS R refurb in. I was like, it's now or never. I was
yeah,
like,
it's a sign. It's a definite sign. Yeah. I mean, same with like out here, like it sucked. Like I was in the same thing where like the stimulus check hit and then like all the camera stores near me were closed. But like the camera stores near me, like they have some pretty good deals, like for like rent to buy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I was tempted to get a different body myself too, but I was like, I don't know, because they weren't doing like, they were reluctant to do those kind of things at the time. So kind of sucked with that. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool though, that, I mean, you were able to up it. And I mean, I think from there, like you've been kind of shooting ever since, like while this has been going on. I think that's kind of been a blessing for some people, you know. It's been something definitely really cool as everyone's been kind of sitting at home nesting down and being able to check on their feed and see something really cool like that.
Yeah, I got lucky that there's several people that live like relatively close to me that I'm in contact with like constantly.
Yeah.
So I'm like, right, if we've been in contact already, let's just keep each other updated on if we possibly get exposed, and we'll play it as safe as possible. That way, like we could still photograph everything, without running the risk of somebody accidentally getting sick from it.
Sure.
So it was a bit of a challenge to figure out at first. We kind of limited how many people we would allow there. We didn't really want it more than like 3 of us that didn't see each other like every day or at least like a few times a week.
Right.
But it definitely, Corona definitely made it a big challenge on traveling. And as you said before, you had the trips going out west. I had a few scheduled, nothing like major, but I canceled them all. And I'm like, this sucks. I was like,
it does.
All of them. So
it's a huge bummer. I mean, for me too, like I've been trying to go out there. I mean, the only time I've been out west, like California coast, anything like that was 2013. And I mean, it was like a really, really interesting trip because we flew into San Francisco. Mind you, literally, like that was my first flight in a while, and I don't do well in flights. Like I get high anxiety about it. So I was like, oh crap. So here we go, 6-hour flight. So we flew in, mind you, 2 days later, something like that. They had some Korean airline like fly in and like crash land almost practically. Like it was like a whole thing. I'm like, oh my God, could you imagine? So we did that. We flew in, really cool scenic stuff, got to do some cool photography down there. But I mean, at the time I was only just shooting on a phone, but I mean, it was still coming out pretty good. And then we got to like Monterey Bay. And so like, I don't know if you know much about that, but it's like, it kind of seems like it's like a little bit in the, like in the middle of nowhere kind of town, right in between San Francisco and LA. As we were driving down to LA, we stayed down the night in Monterey. But I mean, just the sights there, I was like, I wanted to, because I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into photography and stuff like that. I'm like, I want to get gear and just like shoot down here because all the things you can do down here between like the whale trips, just like shooting outside like Monterey Bay Aquarium, anything like that. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, there's so much wildlife out there that you wouldn't believe that would be out there in between those two places. It's just incredible. But yeah, it's been really tough because I've been trying to get out there for the longest time, and I mean, for the past 2 years, it's been canceled on me. So I'm like, oh my God, I got to wait another year. So here's to hoping that everything comes back to some normalcy this coming summer and stuff like that, or late fall even, where we'll be able to get to doing our things that we want to do.
Yeah, actually, I leave for Texas on next Friday. Well,
That's
actually,
right.
a week today. So I'm excited for that. I'm glad I'm fully vaccinated, just for the safety of like myself and others.
Sure.
But there's a lot of people that I'm going to get to see. A lot of people I get to do photos for.
Yeah.
And then come June, I'm supposed to go out to San Diego and stay there for a week, do a couple more shoots. I'm super excited for San Diego because of just all the like wildlife that my friends they send me photos of out there.
Sure.
I was like, I need to get out there soon.
No, yeah, San Diego would definitely be like a hub. I would say that you're going to get a whole bunch of different things from, which is wonderful. That's awesome. Growing into this, like both for reptiles, reptile keeping, anything like that, just reptile interest as well as photography. Have there been photographers, videographers, keepers that you've kind of looked up to, idolized?
Definitely I'll break it down by like both sections. Photography.
Absolutely.
For photography, I've always looked at Zachar's stuff on Instagram. That was one of the like first accounts that I saw. I was like, wow, like I love this. Trey Campbell, the one that helped me with everything. He's down in Texas. I'm hoping I get to see him next week.
Yeah.
His work is amazing. He had I forget exactly what species it was, but it was a Trimerosaurus species. And I remember seeing that photo. It was like, this is insane. So those two guys were definitely the big helps. I've always saw Mike Schultz's work. Thought that was awesome.
Yeah. No, he does some incredible work.
I ironically didn't know who Joel Sartori was.
I was going to literally say that you remind me of him, like your work and stuff like that. When I first saw it, like I think the first photo I saw from you, I thought was Joel's.
Yeah, I've had two people claim before, like when I first started, that I was stealing his work. It was on a roughneck monitor photo, and it was like one of the first photos I ever took. I was like, wow. I was like looking back, I'm like, this photo sucks. But I was like, hey, it was good enough where people liked it. I actually didn't know who he was until I started November 2019. I didn't know who he was until January or February of 2020. I wasn't aware of all of his work. I never saw it anywhere. And I was like, how did I not see this?
Right. No, I followed him for a couple of years too and stuff like that. But yeah, literally the same thing. Like I didn't think you were stealing the work, but like I just kind of, as I'm perusing around, like I like, oh, okay, another shot from Joel's photo arc. And like I'm like, no, this isn't him. And I was like, okay, who's this? And then I clicked on your stuff. I'm like, holy crap. It's incredible the stuff that you've been shooting and stuff like that.
Thank you. Hear that?
Yeah, no problem.
So yeah, I actually bought his photo arc book fairly recently, actually, when I was out in Pittsburgh.
Nice.
I went to one of the museums out there, and I was just kind of like walking around looking at stuff. And I walked over to the books, and it was down in like the bottom right corner. I was like, I'm buying this. I was like, I need this.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got back to the hotel, like I was going through it, and I was just looking at everything. I was like, this is crazy. Super jealous of all of like the mammals and the avians that he gets to do.
Right.
Slowly, I want to look into those. I'm just kind of nervous on like, I don't want to cause an injury to something, which I talked to a few veterinarians about like what the flashes would do to their eyes and stuff like that. All of them have concluded with me that it's not going to cause damage. I should be more concerned with like, say I do a bird, if the bird freaks out and like starts flying around the room. Yeah. So I have a higher chance of an issue happening with that rather than the flashes themselves. So
I wonder what the workaround for that would be,
I do have a contract that I have everybody sign. It takes liability off myself, and it lets the client like know of the possible risks. And I have it like specifically stated in there that the client assumes all risk of the photo shoot, and this comes from anything of like the animal being injured, the client themselves being injured. One thing I did not have it worded specifically toward was, say I get injured on something I'm doing myself.
Yeah,
I would never make somebody else responsible for my own actions.
Right. Yeah.
If like somebody throws a cobra at me and I get bit, then that's on them.
Yeah. That's a little bit different from a reliability standpoint. I mean, I would consider that more of like an assault. Rather than you reaching in and like, oh, okay, let's grab this that way. But okay. Yeah, that's really cool though. I was literally going to say like from the top of this, like, yeah, you literally mimicked like Joel Sator. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's just incredible that you just coincidentally just started learning about him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's cool though. Like you've kind of made your style and then you kind of pronounce yourself a kind of mimic someone else's. But I mean, you've made it your own, and I definitely can see differences versus even if it's like minute to some other people, like in your work versus Joel's and stuff like that, that makes you stand out. So which has been incredible and keeps me and other people keep coming back for more, which is
Yeah,
great.
I always make sure that like I like to follow a bunch of like similar photographers, and there's a lot of us that have like very very similar styles. But I always like to make sure like keep it individual. Try not to ever like fully mimic somebody, even if it's by accident. That originality is always what I shoot for with it. And there's only so much you could do that would make it original.
Yeah.
But like never going out and directly copying like somebody's work. Like say they add like props in with the animal that kind of like fits it or like makes it cool. Like Zach has that looks like a desert species of some sort that he has burrowing in the like really colorful little, I don't know if they're like sprinkles or something.
Yeah.
But it's like one of his most famous shots that I constantly see. And I'm like, I would never recreate that because like that's his. Like he made that and his is well known for that.
Yeah.
So gotta keep it original.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think the cool thing too is that you work with, by my understanding, you work with a whole bunch of abundance of variety in terms of different species yourself. So I mean, I think like with amongst COVID and stuff like that, as well as like the things like versus what other people are able to shoot and everything like that, you kind of have an edge with that as well too. So in terms of that, like you just keep as like a hobbyist, you're not like a breeder or anything like that.
I currently only keep as hobbyists. There's a few things I want to breed. I actually have eyelash vipers, which are in this one.
Those are my favorite.
They're going to be, I think, a year and a half to 2 years old soon. So they're coming up on sexual maturity. I'm hoping they breed. And I actually have a massive emerald tree boa female. The male is right here.
Nice.
Female is right over there.
And you got it all set up nice. That's great.
I paired them back in November and they locked like numerous times. I never saw like a full lock like the bubble gum everybody says to look for.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen like their tails were wrapped like constantly for hours. So I'm like, he's got at least like done it once.
Right.
So I saw that for 7 times over the span of several different pairings. So I'm hoping she's pregnant. It's always been a species that I never thought I would breed, but I was like, oh, that'd be really cool to do. Like those are awesome.
Sure.
So it'd be ironic if that's the first one that I actually end up producing.
And not many people work with them. So
no. So I'm excited for those.
So like how long have you been like keeping reptiles?
So when I was younger, I had an Everglades yellow rat snake was the first species I ever like personally kept. Then we moved to a smaller house. And then we moved into the house we're in currently.
Yeah.
When we moved into this house, I actually got a ball python. I was away for college. My mom was watching it. We had a freak accident happen because of my cat. She actually cut the probe wire on the thermostat. So it ended up causing issues. The snake ended up not making it because I wasn't there to really see like or check what was going on.
Sure. No, I've been there. So, that sucks.
Yeah. When that happened, I was like, all right. So I took some time off keeping. Then I actually went to Hamburg in December 7th, 2014. And I got a carpet python. And from there, I was like slowly adding more and more. And then it was Tinley, October 2019. I was out with people after like we went to the show. And that's when the eyelash vipers were for sale back at somebody from around where I live. And he told me, he's like, I'll give you one like super cheap. It's like, I know it's one of your favorite species. It's going to be one of your first ones that you get into. And he knew like I knew how to handle them. But it'd be the first that I'm like personally keeping and would be handling alone. So I got that. It was only about 4.5, 5 inches long. Thankfully, it was eating decently well for me.
Yeah.
And then from there, it kind of just kept going on. And now I'm at 36 individuals currently.
Man, oh my gosh. So would you say like the ratio to venomous versus non-venomous? What's the ratio there?
It's, I think, slightly over half for venomous.
Okay. Wow.
I always said I would never keep arboreal vipers because I didn't like how they could climb a hook. That's what I mainly keep is arboreal vipers, ironically. I always said, I was like, I don't really like cobras. Like, I don't like their speed and they're just like a whole different thing compared to vipers. and now I have the Indo-Chinese spitter, and I have a Wrinkle spitting Cobra.
Yeah. And those are
And
wild too because they throw the venom.
yeah,
Not like just a normal spit. They throw it.
no, yeah, Wrinkles is just like I get showered most of the time. She's relatively calm now. She doesn't really spit as much, but if like I startle her, she'll just like instantly cover me. But I like Elapids a lot now, so I'm thinking I'm gonna start focusing mainly on Cobras as well as arboreal vipers, and then sticking with mainly arboreal vipers because I love to do the bioactive enclosures.
Yeah, no, that's great. Getting into like I always heard like a while back, like I know someone that keeps cobras and stuff like that, and he was telling we were just talking, and I was just like, so how would you say a person would get into venomous snakes? And he says, well, by handling non-venomous, because I mean, if you make a mistake there, you're not gonna have an issue or anything like that, especially like more whippy kind of non-venomous snakes, I mean, something that's like a rat snake species or something like that. But
It's kind of hard because one, every snake is its own individual, so you really never know how it's going to react until you work with it. I don't want to say non-venomous will prepare you for venomous because there is that lethal factor that could happen if you get bit.
Sure.
But there are a lot of aspects of like if you want to work on handling like more flighty snakes like racers or rat snakes on hooks, it's definitely going to be good hook practice.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that's what he was implying. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I'd say it's more so will prepare you for your proper handling etiquette, but then you can't get lax on what is going on. Like you always have to be aware of like what you're handling, what is in front of you. Kind of started the way you shouldn't. When I was studying out in Costa Rica, the first venomous snake I ever worked with was a Faraday lance.
Okay.
And thankfully it was like small, but all we did was like double hook it. I actually had Gavin Brink, who sadly passed away fairly recently. He was my TA for the course, and he was giving me like all like these tips on like how to use the hooks and all that. So it was kind of him showing me how to use the hooks is where I learned like, okay, I need to practice on non-venomous. Got better with my hook handling, and then I slowly went into ideally wanted to find people with snakes to find a mentor. But then I ended up just finding like a timber rattlesnake for the first time in the wild. I was like, well, it's now or never of learning how to use the hook. It was only like 3.5 feet, so it wasn't anything like massive. And I had my hooks were 48 inches.
Yeah.
So it's like I know I'm out of the strike range, and I know just keep the head away from me. But I realized like you have to have confidence when you're working with the animals. If you don't and you're too nervous, that's when you're going to slip up and make a mistake. But other than that, like it's mainly hands-on is where you're going to learn. Well, hooks on, I should say.
Yeah, right. No kidding. Yeah.
But it's every individual is different. Every species is going to end up acting differently. You'll get some similarities, but just finding
like in comparison from like an elapid to a viper, I mean, that's a huge difference. Yeah.
I find larger elapids easier to work with than larger vipers, only because of just overall behavior. Like most larger elapids aren't trying to like, it's not like a spring-loaded gun where it's going to fire out at you. Yeah. They kind of have like slightly slower strikes, or they give you a lot more warning of what's going to happen.
Right. That's basically, so like it was never like a mentorship for you.
No, mine, it sadly wasn't. I tried it. There weren't a lot of people really keeping venomous around me that I knew of.
Yeah.
And I figured I was like, okay, I'm just going to talk to a bunch of people. Like one of my good friends, Nick Tolucci, I constantly ask him questions about like just various things. I knew when I started with the eyelash viper that it's going to be a good introduction to the venomous. The only bad part was if it's not eating, I do have to be kind of hands-on with it, which thankfully it was eating, but it was small, just a small little hook. The only way I'd ever get bit by that was me just being stupid. Yeah. There should be no reason that I would get bit by something like that small. So once I like understood that, kind of got used to like knowing, okay, I have a venomous snake in the house. I'm going to handle them. And it slowly started working into like getting used to like the rattlesnakes when we found the timber rattlesnake, or like a few people I know had cobras. So like we'd slowly kind of work with them. I'd always tell people like if I was doing something and I didn't feel confident with it, I had people next to me with hooks, and I would say like, I'm not comfortable with this. And I'd have somebody immediately take the snake from me.
Right.
And I always tell people like, if you aren't comfortable, it's best to start over on handling that individual in the moment, then try to correct it with some like risky move or something. Like just put it down if you can and start over. That's what like definitely saved me from who knows if bites would have happened.
Right. No, yeah. And I mean, even animals that you feel you can read pretty well. I mean, I would say too, like even if like it was a day that like say like for example a couple weeks ago, like when you were not feeling the best because of the shot and everything like that, like it's probably a day that you were like, you know, and I'm probably going to take this off because I'm not feeling my best. I'm not going to be at 100% to be able to handle this animal, be alert for this and everything like that, and kind of let it run its course before you're able to get back in there to do what you have to do with them.
Yeah, I made sure I only had to handle a few of them. No venomous. I said I was like, I'm not feeling well, as you just said. It's not worth accidentally risking something. I had to water or just fill the water bowl in my purple mangrove pit viper enclosure, but she sits in this cork bark hide that the entrance is aimed away from me, and I have a really long spray nozzle, so it's like I'm just gonna crack the door, fill her water, and close it.
Yep.
But I knew I was like, I'm not feeling well. My reaction time is not going to be what it is, and I can't think straight, so it's not worth accidentally getting bit.
No, 100% not. Even like what you said, like you know where the animal is and you're still cracking the door and stuff like that. I mean, that's good awareness, you know. I mean, that's good respect for the animal where you're like, you know that if something could happen, it will. So I mean, kind of taking all the precautions and stuff like that. I mean, that's something that's huge for anyone that I would say is keeping them or thinking about keeping them and stuff like that, is kind of having that mindfulness.
So your goal is always be aware of where the animal is, especially where its head is, and don't try and go in the enclosure with the animal in there if you know there's going to be a risk of something. You really shouldn't ever go in an enclosure if there's venomous snake in there.
Sure.
I have the really long forceps. Like if I have to grab like water bowl, I'll crack the door, stick them in, pick up the water bowl, bring it to the door. I'll open the door more, take it out, and then just close it.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's easier than like stressing the snake out to try and dig it out of its hide, take it out, put it in another container.
Yeah.
Most of the time they probably didn't even know I was in and out. So
sure.
Just gotta
Is it
be
still
safe.
cautionary? Like while, like I think I saw this on a video too. Like it was at a zoo where like even when they took the animal out, like they took the animal, secured it somewhere elsewhere, and then they were still cautionary in the cage because of loose fangs and stuff like that.
I don't really follow too much of my safety protocols when the snake is out when I'm cleaning, because of if I'm cleaning up poop, I have like a little scooper.
Gotcha.
I don't really pay too much attention to like the possibility of being stabbed with a fang.
Because you're using a tool.
Yeah, but like the venom dries fairly quickly.
Yeah.
I would be more worried about getting stabbed by a fang that's in fecal matter and getting infected from the poop itself rather than venom. There's actually a guy who posted on Facebook recently about this because he picked up something and he got stabbed with a fang from some type of rattlesnake.
Yeah.
And he's wondering, he's like, what are the chances of like an envenomation happening? And a lot of like pretty important people like commented saying like it's very low. You might want to just clean it out really well. If anything, if it was like a fresh poop, maybe you will have like irritation or swelling from it.
Interesting.
How are you going to know if that's from the venom or poop itself?
Yeah.
So far, I have never heard of a case of somebody being like killed or like super injured from the.
Right. I haven't either. Yeah. I just was curious on that. Interesting. Because I know too, like venom, like the venom only can do so much, I believe, at least certain ones, when it's actually injected or if it gets into a wound.
Yeah. There's a lot of them like with the Indo-Chinese spitting cobra, you have to watch because if it gets in your eyes, their venom is like a lot of spitters targets the eyes, so it's evolved differently for causing reactions with your eyes. And I was reading a study recently that said Indo-Chinese spitters can have venom like actually kill you if it gets in your eyes. As far as I've actually seen when it comes to like open wounds and getting like venom in it, I'm gonna say it's the same as if you get injected.
Sure.
Because it's direct contact to your bloodstream. The biggest thing with the spitters is I have respirators because I know a lot of people who got an allergy developed because of the crystallized venom that's like dried on the glass or in the enclosure.
Really?
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Like my friend Zane is, he can't handle like spitters. Like when we got the wrinkles in and it spit, he had to leave the room instantly. Like he said he was like getting like rashes and like his throat. So I was like, yeah, like I'm not taking the chance of like an allergy happening.
Yeah.
So if I take them out, everybody in the room has to have a respirator on, and I'm cleaning everywhere after.
Wow. No, that's interesting because I know like you don't hear that normally until like people are like high scale, like doing cricket production. You know what I mean? Like the cricket dust and stuff like that. I mean, even people that work in pet stores sometimes, like I used to work in a pet store and like that stuff's nasty, man. It's like tough. Wow. So, I never knew that.
Yeah, respirators are definitely a big thing when it comes to spitters as well as your face shield. Most people just
Oh
wear
yeah.
like holes in the face shield, but I'm like, I'm doing both. I was like, I'm not risking it because I want to keep these for long term.
Yeah.
And
And
few
it's
people,
responsible keeping, you know,
yeah,
I mean, that's what you kind of want people that look up to you to kind of mimic, you know?
yeah. And I bought a respirator on Amazon. Like I went through the reviews from like the manufacturer itself, and I bought it like the height of Corona when everything was selling out, and it was still super easy to get one. And it's like I've saw a few people. I posted on Facebook. A few people said they have the same one off Amazon, and it worked well. Like so far, they're doing great with it. Definitely worth having it. It was only $30, so
Yeah, that's not bad at all. That's like really shocking to me. I never knew like the crystallized venom and stuff like that. Yeah, that's something things you never think about, you know?
yeah.
You never think like that would be something that could cause issues. But I mean, yeah, makes sense.
When I got the wrinkles, she was like super like defensive because she was wild caught, so she wasn't ever like really worked with much.
Gotcha.
Um, the one glass door was constantly covered in it, so I'd constantly be cleaning it. I was like, I'd rather just clean it as fast as possible and get rid of like the crystallized venom
Yeah.
that I could see. I don't know if it's going to be all over the inside of the enclosure, which it probably was.
Yeah, probably.
Safe as possible for me to keep as least amount of it in the air as I could.
Yeah.
So,
So like you kind of said earlier, like dream species before you had venomous was like the Irish vipers.
yeah.
Do you have one now that like you would love to get? Doesn't have to be venomous, but dream species.
There's so many that I'm like, wow, these are really cool. Like I've always wanted a green anaconda, but I was like, I'll never get one. I was actually given one for free. So I was like, all right, now I have a green anaconda. I always
That's always
wanted
the
a
case.
yeah, I always wanted a blue and Solaris, and I got one in exchange for a photo shoot. The thing was like pounding food. It was doing great. I had it for 5 months, and I still have it. It sucks at eating though. I had it for 5 months. It slam food, slam food. All of a sudden, nothing changed. It just decided I'm done eating. So it went from eating like small mice to only pinky heads. And it used to like I just give it the small mouse, it would take it. Now I'm sitting there for like half an hour with a pinky head, like trying to get it to take it. And I've asked so many people like, what am I doing wrong? And like they've seen like the enclosure, you can actually see it. Hold on, I gotta figure out which way I'm pointing.
Oh, you're good.
This here.
Yep.
Everybody's like do a large like planted enclosure for it, do the little basking spot. So I have everything set up perfectly of like people who breed them have.
Yeah.
And I set that up last night and I'm like, please just eat normally for me.
Yeah. No kidding.
Let's see, dream species. Um, I've always wanted a Trimerosaurus venustris, which is the Christmas viper.
Okay.
I've just loved their patterns, but I'm having such bad luck with Trimerosaurus as a genus overall. So I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna put myself through that torture again. I really like the Bothricus genus, so I'm thinking of like slowly keeping just those. And I really like Atheris. Surprisingly, like I used to like think, oh, everybody gets swams, but swams are stunning, and I love my Chlorecus. I'd really like to get a Hispida, but those are like nobody has those.
Yeah.
So,
do you think you're pretty like maxed out in your room right now? Or...
oh yeah, I have more animals than I have originally mapped out for the enclosure space that I have, but I'm deciding that I'm going to sacrifice another wall for the enclosures. But what I'm going to do is try and like go as straight up as possible and use the like smaller cube enclosures for the smaller arboreals and put them on that wall. And then everything else will be good.
Nice.
But I'm hoping, because I'm still younger, still in school.
Yeah.
Hoping like by the time everything's like fully an adult, I'll be able to have my own house.
What is it like to kind of like walk through like a day in the life of like a venomous shoot? Like if you're doing like a venomous shoot for like whether it's your stuff or someone else's, what's that like?
So I'll talk about a couple different species that I've done while doing shoots. The shoots itself are pretty straightforward. Of like I like to go out to where the person is or where the animals are, because it's less stress on the animals, and all of the equipment fits in like I think it's like a 56 gallon container.
Yeah.
And I just throw it in my car and I go.
Yeah.
So I'll set it up where the table that I actually have my laptop on sitting now will have the acrylic on it. The flashes will be one on my left, one on my right, and I'll adjust those based on like the animal's movement or kind of just what lighting I need.
So that's what the base is. It's kind of like a reflective acrylic.
Yeah, it was a piece of acrylic. I found a company online, and I asked them like if they can do like different things with it, and they're like, yeah, we've done this all the time. So I kind of took a shot in the dark with it. I actually found the company through Amazon. And I like it a lot. Like it works really well for me. Sadly, like have it listed on Amazon anymore for me to find it. So I'm gonna try and like go through my emails and see if I can find the company again.
Yeah.
And I need a new piece because a lot of the monitors will like scratch the hell out of it.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah.
So even like with non-venomous, I'll just have them like people put the snake down on the platform in front of me. Depending on what animal it is, will depend if I use 100 millimeter or the 35. I almost rarely use the 35 millimeter for venomous, just because the 100 millimeter gives me more of a distance to be back from them.
Sure.
I'll always have at least somebody in the back because it's a flash will be here, flash will be here, platform is directly in front of me. Right. In the very back is like a black velvet sheet, so it kind of like just drops all the light back there.
Yeah.
And I'll have somebody that's on the side, but like closer to the backdrop with a hook. Ideally, a person on each side, depending on what species it is. And they're going to be the ones that'll keep me safe if the snake goes backwards, like toward the backdrop, so somebody can grab it. I always have a hook at my feet if a snake comes at me. I actually had a Samar spitting cobra come straight at me. It wasn't trying to come at me to be aggressive or defensive. It was just fleeing.
Just the way it was moving.
Yeah, so the only opening it really had was straight in front of it, and that's where I was. So it actually came off the table, went like right next to me. Didn't hood up or anything. It was just like, I'm leaving. So I kind of just like scooped it quickly with a hook, threw it back up on the platform really gently. And the snake was acting like too like skittish. So I decided, all right, we'll just not do that one.
Now, is it hard because like you said, you have other people that are kind of like there for backups for you. But like, is it hard to like focus not only on your shot, but like in real life, like that you're working with this animal and stuff like that?
It depends on the animal. There's some that like I'll put on the platform and yeah, like they'll just sit there and like, I know, okay, like there's Cobra in front of me. I have 4 or 5 feet between me and the Cobra. The good thing about like while I'm looking through the camera is I can still see what's going on in front of me.
Right.
The really bad thing is I have about a 2-second delay. I take the photo and I like to like always check to make sure the photo came out right, because I like to always check the lighting, which is kind of a bad thing photographers always recommend don't doing. But I'll always like check stuff out, and for those 2 seconds I'm blind. But I have all the other people there, and I always tell somebody, I'm like, if it's coming at me in those 2 seconds, like say something. So I always make sure that I at least have the hook there, so if somebody says something, I can just pick the hook up, and if it's coming toward me, like I can just turn it somewhere else. The only animal I ever had actually come at me off the platform was that Samar spitter, but it was just trying to flee. I wasn't nervous at all because reading the snake's behavior, it wasn't focused on me at all. I could see it like it was just turned like way away. It was looking at something in the other direction and it wanted to go that way.
I think that kind of gives you an edge versus like some photographers, because you actually work with Venomous, you know?
Yeah.
So it kind of gives you a more focused approach where you're like, okay, I know what I can do, one, to get like a good photo of this animal, and two, I know how to keep myself safe.
Yeah.
So I know how to read this animal pretty darn well.
The only snake, actually, there's 5 snakes that I have worked with for photos that I straight out said, like, I know my abilities aren't good enough to handle this animal. That was when I did Dax, the King Cobra at Dylan's house.
That was great shots, though.
I was like, this is the first non-venomoid King Cobra that I'm doing. The one was the one Eric Vogel got that was imported that way, with a bunch of them were venomoids. But when I told Dylan, I was like, I personally know I cannot handle a king this size, and I know I can't handle it if the first thing that comes at me is the head. So he always kept track of them. He always had like one hand down on his tail. Yeah. And his tail kind of like went off to the side because he was long enough for that. But yeah, he never came at me or anything. He would hood up perfectly and he would stay like perfectly focused on me. Then when I did the Mambas, that was the first experience I'd been in with a Mamba in a room with no like not in an enclosure.
Yeah. I
trusted Zane with my life. Like I've seen him work with these animals, and he's probably like the most careful and the best handler I've ever seen. That's awesome. And I trusted him. He knew the snakes. He knew which ones we could and could not do. He knew the most sketchy was the black mamba. It was a juvenile and it was slightly flighty. And he told me, he's like, you're only going to maybe get like 10 to 20 shots, if that.
Yeah. So
I would try and like get the shots as quick as possible. We would wait a second to read the snake. What was actually surprising is when the flashes would go off, the mamba focused on those. So it like didn't really pay attention to me. So like a flash would go off and it would like open its mouth at the flash, but it would never go at it.
Because you're not necessarily moving around. So
No, sitting there like as still as possible. Like I'll be like this.
yeah.
Like as still as possible, and like I'll slowly go back and forth like as needed. Zane did tell me when we did the Western Green Mamba, he's like, as you move, he's like, you need to go as slow as possible, because I actually readjusted my hand on the camera and the snake was aimed like 90 degrees away from me, and it turned perfectly to like where my hand was. And I probably only did this. And I knew, I was like, all right, that snake is like keen on every little bit of movement. But none of the mambas left the table. The black mamba, when we realized that it was getting like a little like nervous, Zane's like, all right, like, do you think you have good shots? And I said, yeah. I was like, I have probably a couple of them that I like. He's like, all right. He's like, I'd like to stop at this one. He's like, I don't want it to take off toward you.
Yeah.
So we just put it back, and it was great. We did the inland Taipan babies, and those were simple. They just sat there. One of them was like, oh, I'm gonna go this way, and like Zane just like took a hook and like slowly pulled it back to the center.
Yeah.
Zane is a PNG Taipan, but he sent me a video. That thing is a nut. I was like, I'm not comfortable photographing that, because like it looks like it just wants everything in the world to die. Yeah. But it's a stunning animal, and like that's like, it's just more of a defensive snake. I was like, I'll find another one. I was like, right. I'll wait. Like, it's not the only one in the world. Definitely like the 100mm lens gives me my best advantage, because I'm farthest enough back where I have reaction time. I know like with the mambas, say one came at me, like they're extremely fast, but I had people next to me with hooks. I had a hook. It's easy enough to kind of deflect the snake's motion away from you instead of like trying to grab it. We were in like a space where like if the snake did get past us, it's not going to get lost. Like we'll just go grab it. And that's like another big thing. Like I like to shoot in as secure as possible rooms, like doors closed, all like gaps and cracks, like of anything. Like even if there's a dresser in there and like there's a space under it, I like to have it sealed. You never really know what's going to actually go off the table or not.
Sure. So, and you probably keep like you said, you keep your team of people in the room to a minimum.
If you aren't somebody who owns the animals or has experience handling these animals, I don't want you in the room if it's a smaller room.
Sure.
If it's a bigger room, like when I got the pleasure of going out to see Eric and Jen Vogel, we did it in like their bigger section of the basement. So like we had like, there was still like 10, 12 feet behind me where people can be. And that's like 15 feet from the platform, if not more.
Yeah.
So like, I was comfortable with people being back there watching, rather than like if we were in this room I'm in now. When I set up the stuff, like I only get like a little bit of space to actually move around. So I'm like, I'm going to try and keep it to a minimum as much as I can.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that makes sense. I mean, it's all about precautions, you know? I mean, whether you're handling just to handle as a hobbyist or if you're handling for like the photo shoots. And I think that's kind of, like I said before, you bring to the table that knowledge where you can go to these shoots and be like, yeah, this is how this should go and stuff like that. And this is the only way I feel comfortable.
Like, well, it's always been a good like mutual agreement of what I as a photographer and the other person as the owner of the animal are comfortable with.
Yeah.
I always tell them, I was like, I trust your abilities to handle the animal because one, you own it, two, you know its behavior. I don't. I've never worked with the individual. I trust my abilities to be able to keep myself and others as safe as possible if something happens or if I do need to handle that species.
Yeah. So
it all depends on just, it's mainly the factor of the individual animal itself,
right,
is what it comes down to. But I do prefer the owner of the animal handling it because they're going to have the most experience with that individual.
Because of that experience and stuff like that, and that amount of like, everyone knows the accountability that each one person has. Like,
yeah,
has crazy experiences been to a minimum for you, like on a photo shoot?
The only crazy experience I had was the Samar coming off, and that wasn't even really that bad. Like, it was fast, but it wasn't like you blinked and you had no idea what happened. Yeah. So that was thankfully quick like correction, and just we decided let's not do it again. When we did the Venomoid King, it was pretty big. I think it was like close to 9 feet, give or take.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
We were a little lax on it because it was proven through ultrasounds and possible extractions that it was a Venomoid. So we kind of treated it like a really defensive corn snake. Okay. But it kept like coming forward, and it would like wrap around like the little stand that the speed light was on, and it kept like trying to knock the flash down as it was going.
Wow.
But that was more so because the snake was so large and so flighty. To fix that, I just moved the speed lights back and I turned up the power of them. Like I just cranked them all the way up. I was like, I'll just fix that like post editing. But other than that, I haven't had any like experiences that were scary. One I thought would have been bad was when I did the Russell's Viper because it was really like huffy and puffy at me. I was like, there's a specific shot I want of the nostrils, and I know I have to get somewhat close, but not in strike range.
Right.
I was like, but I know I'm gonna jump if it strikes at me.
Yeah.
But it never did. I never got the shot I wanted because right when I wanted to, it decided to turn and like take off. So it was like trying to get away, and I was like, all right, like I got good enough shots of it.
Yeah.
But there's a few shots that I'm like, all right, I want, but I know I can't get safely. So I don't risk it. It's not worth that. Like it's not worth dying over. So
no. Right. Yeah. No, exactly.
So
like you said, like with that one species, like it's not the only one in the world, you know?
Yeah.
So.
When I actually, I think the scariest situation I had was I did a Vietnamese giant centipede.
Yeah.
And I don't really handle like centipedes much. My friend did, and he told me, he's like, this is how you handle them. He's like, here's like, we just use like empty containers. Like if it ran off the table, which it did a lot, put it over it, and then he'd come over and get it. So we kind of like use a catch cup style. I had the container in my hand, and I didn't realize I had the end of a hook through it because I was using the hook to kind of direct the snake. I accidentally put the hook down through it. So I picked the container up, couldn't get the hook out. So I decided to use my foot as like a block. So I put my foot at like an angle, forgetting like a centipede's just going to run right up it. And instead of it running across my foot, it ran up my foot, stopped, and then looked up my leg, and it started running up my leg.
Oh,
and,
God.
I don't even know what sound I made. I just remember going, ah! I was like, fast. And then like in like a blink of an eye, went from my foot to like up my hip. Then like I just like pressed against like the dresser that had a cloth on it. And it was like, please get off. And it like climbed off that. And then my friend grabbed it. I was gonna say that's probably like the worst experience I ever had because I didn't expect it. And I was like, I was like, this is not gonna go well if it bites me. And it was like
no kidding. Oh my
defense.
God, it's not like that light either, where it's like it smokes and you throw it out the window. You know, you can't throw your light out the window.
I just jumped out the window with the centipede. No, I mean, like I'm done.
Yeah, right. So. No kidding. Oh my God, that's crazy. It's like pretty commendable though. Like, not only are you like doing these crazy, like amazing shoots and stuff like that, and it's quite an adrenaline rush. I mean, even just working with the Venomous and stuff like that. But I mean, I'm sure it's like an extreme honor. And I mean, I think it's something too that like a lot of people will never have that experience, you know? And I mean, I think for some of us, we don't realize that. And I think it's kind of not only that, but like working with an abundance and variety of different species and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of like the out of sight, out of mind approach where like, if people don't know about these animals, they're not going to do anything about these animals, you know? Yeah. So I think it kind of goes all the way back to, if you don't do these kind of things, people will never know and they'll never care. So I think doing, whether it's video work, photography, just working with these animals, I mean, it's huge. And I think a lot of people miss that. And even with like the legislation going down right now, I think you're like, well, I think everyone is like, that keeps these animals is like living proof. Like it works to like kind of for the sake of the planet and species and environmental causes and issues, makes people care.
Two things and all that. I'll come back to one of them.
Yeah.
Mainly on this, that's always what I want to do with my work is I want to be able to show people these animals in a different light and show like they're not like these slimy, like scary creatures or like the creepy crawlies that everybody says.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, like some of them you need an acquired taste to like.
Yeah.
But like without them, like we wouldn't have so many things. Like take like copperheads, for example, like their venom's used for breast cancer research.
Right.
Or like I never thought I'd have the chance to shoot Bothrops jararaca, and that snake is the sole reason we have hypertension like medication. Like if you have high blood pressure, you owe it to that snake.
Yep.
And I always try to add like as many like interesting facts in as I can. Some of my Instagram posts are like just like quick little comments, but anything that like I know or could find information about what it's been used for research wise, I want to share that with people. Like I want to show you like if you're scared of the snake, like okay, like but try to look at it from a different aspect of like it's an animal that saves lives. Whether it's that specific individual or like what that individual possesses, that really shouldn't matter. It shouldn't be like, oh, well, this snake was the one that was extracted to make my medication. It should be like, we need these animals. We don't know what future possibilities we can come up with using these animals and their natural abilities to produce something. And which is relatively inexhaustible. It depends on like the extractions, how they're done, and all that. That's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
Like without these animals, like we would have so many things that keep us alive, and I feel like not enough people are aware of that, and then not enough people truly do appreciate like just how amazing they are.
Yeah. And a lot of it too comes from the private sector of
Yeah.
owning these, you know?
So that's a like a lot of animals will get like donated to zoos that people are breeding like at their home.
Yeah.
Like say like if I ever were to successfully breed the wrinkles, like there's not many people, if anybody, that I know of captive breeding wrinkles in the country.
Right.
It wasn't only until recently like that these individuals were kind of, I don't want to say common again, but like more easy to get. Because like in the past few months, they're pretty easily attainable because of who's been bringing them in. But it's like captive breeding programs like that. Like if you take the Mangshan viper, for example, there's less than 500. I think it's actually less than 400 now in the wild. But then if you look at like captive breeding in the United States, we probably have like easily 100, if not more, captive individuals that could be used, hopefully, for reestablishing their species. Whether they actually get sent to China and reintroduced, that's a whole different thing because you don't want to produce them and then release it and then it doesn't make it.
Oh, and that makes sense. I mean, I think too, like a lot of people will say, like anything that's native to an island and strictly to an island is always considered endangered in that book.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you only have so much of space for that animal to live. And then
Yeah.
once that's gone, I mean, it's wiped, you know, I mean, and a lot of people need to owe it to people that one work with these animals, one that educated with these animals and try to make these animals thrive elsewhere
Yeah.
to kind of cohabit and the issue.
So I know like I've always wanted to breed stuff. I know financially right now I can't. The space I have I can't. And because of my lifestyle, like I travel a lot now. I really don't know where I'm going to be because I'm still younger, still in school. Ideally want to go to grad school or vet school. So I don't want to like take on a lot of animals and then start breeding projects to have to abandon them.
Sure.
So I use photography as an additional way to kind of promote like the education of these animals.
Oh, absolutely.
If I can't personally reproduce them, I can reproduce images that still bring awareness to the public.
Right.
So more people are going to be attentive to, okay, like here's a Mangshan viper. There's less than 400 in the wild, but like this is like one of the coolest looking animals. Why are we not protecting it?
Yeah.
Are we not protecting it because it's not fuzzy and cute? Like I feel like we should be paying more attention to like the destruction that we're causing on all species instead of just the fuzzy and cute ones.
No, I agree. And literally, like, that's kind of what, like, this whole arm is going to be endangered species in North America. So, and I think also, too, like, working in retail, like, for years, like, that whole thing was, like, the conversation to spark up for a lot of people. Not only is it, like, amazing artwork, but, like, it's something that a lot of people want to know more about. Like, what's the reasoning behind it? What is this species? And kind of giving people that awareness where they walk away and they're like, wow, that's kind of impactful. What can I do more? And kind of walk away and hopefully want to do more and donate to different organizations and such to kind of do those types of things. So
that's why when like I like doing print sales where certain percentages go to like different organizations.
Yeah.
I'm waiting until I get more species photographed from like different regions of the world, because what I want to do is like say I do a bunch of Australian species, I'll run like a kind of like an event where 50% of the profit will go donated to an organization that focuses on these species out in Australia.
Yeah. And
kind of like then find one for like South America or stuff like that. Like when Australia had the wildfires, I did a big thing where I sold a lot of prints and 100% of the profits were donated to, I did the wildlife warriors out there through the Australian. So I feel like as much as I can do to help, I'm going to. Like I want to be able to promote the animals as well as also like support as many conservation like projects and that as I could.
Nice. No, and that's literally what it's all about. Yeah. And
Yeah.
hopefully like just through talking and stuff like that, more people realize that are out of not even necessarily like, I mean, obviously people that know like the connections like that are into reptiles and stuff like that. But like, I think more so the rewarding thing is reaching the people that aren't, you know. I think that's definitely the more rewarding thing is bringing people that would be like, look the other way, kind of looking towards and kind of bringing that fascination into them. I think that's definitely more a rewarding aspect. But in terms of like mentioning like your travel and stuff like that, is there somewhere ideally that you would love to shoot?
Because I mainly focus on like the captive stuff. There's like I'll go wherever there like animals are. I'm really trying to go down to Florida for that.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to for wildlife. I've always wanted to go back to Costa Rica now that I know how to use my camera better, and I really want to go to Australia. I'd love to go out to Africa. There's a few people I know out in there in like different regions that I'd like to go see.
Nice.
Kind of just a matter of one, finances and the time to do it. So if I ever get a chance, though, those are going to be my top 3 sections. Going to.
Oh yeah, those would definitely be cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of to wrap it up here, last question would be like, what would be tips you would have? I know I'm guarantee you get this so much. I see it in your Instagram questions, but like, what would be like tips that you would give someone starting out, like as a photographer, that you would kind of bring forth that you would wish you knew?
So I'm completely self-taught, and I did that by my 3 main things that I tell people. 1, go online and you have the world at your fingertips. Like you can figure out anything.
Yeah.
I forget, like I'm collective over like 600 hours of YouTube videos on different things. Like if I want to know like how to shoot this style, like I started with like mainly portraits or like just outdoor like wildlife stuff. If I wanted to figure out like just different settings or like tips that other photographers had, I'd go on YouTube. I'd just type in like a general thing of what I wanted. And like I'd always look for the video with the most views, because the video with the most views probably has the best information, or it's somebody that's like really trustworthy. So I always look stuff up. I'd always find like articles to read, just like basic things on like how the camera works. Another big thing is don't be afraid to ask questions. Questions like this one are what got me to where I'm at. I love talking to people about it. I love helping people with settings, like just like, hey, like I'm stuck with this. Like I want to get a light to kind of bring it up, but like I don't know what to get. I'm not affiliated with any company or any brand, but I always recommend people the lights I have. I have Godox flashes, and I think they're amazing. Like I love them. And then the third thing is just shoot, just practice and shoot. And I actually had a little journal, and I still have it. I don't use it as often, but whenever I get new information, like I'll write it into it. But I'll go out and I'll shoot on like different days. Like I used to write down like the temperature, how harsh the sun was, like if it was cloudy or not. And then like I just go find like a tree or something small, like a garbage can, and just take like photos at different settings. I'd write down the settings and write like if the image looked good or not, like, and just write like what was wrong with it.
Exactly what I heard too, is like a lot of people do that too, is like they write a little journal. I do that too now, is kind of take a journal with me and kind of know, like you said, weather patterns, lighting, anything like that. If there's an overcast, anything.
Yeah. And like it just helps you, like, one, you have something to reflect back on. 2, you're gonna probably hit the same situation several times in the future. So you're gonna be aware of like, okay, this is how I solved that last time. And then don't be afraid to, like, if you are doing a shoot, like I did senior portraits recently, actually it was back in the fall. And we were in a spot that like setting wise it was perfect, but the lighting wise it wasn't, because there was so many, it was, the sun was going through the trees, there were so many like light brackets going through.
Yeah.
And like 3/4 of the person was lit up, and I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I quite frankly can't figure this out. I was like, I think we're doing this at the wrong time of day. The shoot was about an hour long, but it was at a period where the sun would shift enough.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's come back to that spot. So we came back to it and we got like perfect photos at it.
Nice.
But just practice is going to be like the biggest thing. And
Sure.
don't be afraid to, like, I got my EOS R, and as it was coming to me, I looked up a video that just went through every single setting of the camera. And like I wrote down stuff. I was like, okay, this is gonna be important that I'll want to use. That gave me an advantage. Like I didn't get the camera, and I was like, okay, how do I use this? Like I knew, I was like, okay, like I want to set these settings up. This is gonna help me get better at what I want to do. And I haven't had any issues with like using the camera because of that. Like I can reflect back on, okay, like I know, like if I want to change this, this is how I'll do it. But research, practice, and reaching out to everybody. Those are the top 3 things that have gotten me to where I'm at. And I'm always
Right.
open to people asking me questions.
And I would also say too, like from my experience of doing photos and stuff like that, is for years I would keep my settings the same, and I would never branch out. I would get comfortable on something and it would never expand, it'd always get stale, the same. It never would look more of what I would try to go for and stuff like that. I would just kind of settle. So I think kind of getting out of one, trying to get yourself out of auto modes, trying to get strictly in a manual, I think that kind of gets your brain kind of pumping more, where you're trying to think of different scenarios, trying to figure out like weather patterns, anything like that as it changes. I think all of that is really something that it's scary for some. It can be hard, but like you said, just going out there and shooting random things where at the time it doesn't matter can really help you when it does.
Yeah. Because the only thing, like, if you just go out and shoot random things, the only thing you're going to waste is like memory space on a memory card, but then you just format the card to the camera and boom, it's empty.
Yeah.
So like you can only gain from going out to do that. I never actually learned the like triangle, like the exposure triangle.
Yeah.
I kind of just like kept notes of like what the shutter speed, the ISO, and the aperture do at different settings.
Yeah.
So I guess I like learned the triangle, but not directly through like a diagram of it.
Yeah.
But that helps a lot. And I like to use manual. And now with the EOS R, I'll sometimes use aperture priority if I want to shoot something quickly. I always use my ISO down as low as I can because I want to get rid of the noise. My aperture, if I want like a nice narrow depth of field for a portrait, I'm going to want my aperture at like 2.8 is the widest I can go on this camera lens. So I'll put it there. And like my shutter speed, I'll like crank it all the way up to like 1/500. Yeah. I try not to go like super high because I'm learning that like if you go super fast with it, your image quality is definitely going to be ruined. But then like depending on like if say 2.8 is not necessarily needed, I'll shoot around like 7 or like I like f11 and f14 is my top ones for animal stuff.
Yeah.
But and then like you just adjust like shutter speed from there, and if needed, sometimes the ISO. I try to avoid the ISO though. I don't like noise in the photos.
Right.
I know you can fix it, but it takes away the quality.
Right. Yeah. So, then I think if you do that, you have to change a whole bunch of different things to gain back that quality.
Yeah. So the other settings that or like edits that you'd have to do when you could possibly avoid it in the future or past.
Yeah. So you'd have to worry about it in post. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Nathan. I know this has been a long time coming. I was super excited to get you on. This has been really cool. I know this was your first podcast too, so definitely something. Yeah, good. I'm glad. I was going to ask you. I was hoping that this would be something cool for you, but yeah, really appreciate having you on. Now, quick question too: where can people find your work? Anything? Where can they find you?
So the main two I use are Instagram and Facebook. Okay. Instagram is Nathan Jordan _photography. For Facebook, I'm using Nathan Jordan Photography for my page. I am slowly starting to add to that more. My personal Facebook is just Nathan Jordan. I use that probably, I'd say the most, but I like Instagram the most for displaying work on the nice, easy, clean grid.
Sure.
I am going to be making a website. It is in the process of being built. I hit a standstill on it because I want to add behind the scenes footage, but I'm struggling to figure out how to get that added into it.
Okay.
I don't know the domain for that yet, but that will be in my Instagram bio whenever it's finished. So.
And then like, where can people get prints? They just have a link on one of those websites if they want to reach out for prints.
The website I'm doing now is going to have like a little store into it. Okay. It's going to have the gallery so you can see all the images. It's going to have a store, and it's also going to have a contact section. So if you see a print in the gallery you like, but it's not in the store itself, people can just easily send me an email, and there's no fee or anything for doing that way. Like I'll do custom orders all the time. Right now, people just message me on Instagram or Facebook to order. I do have an Etsy, but I don't like Etsy because the fees have definitely.
I was going to say the fees. Yep.
I kind of stopped adding to it. I left it on there in case somebody does want to use it. But once I get my own website built, it's going to have like a nice, quick and easy storefront. But currently, it's just quick message, and I send you the price list. You just let me know what photo you want and your shipping address, and then I use PayPal, Venmo. I've actually used Facebook Pay. I've never had an issue with that. It worked really well. And then I sometimes use Square if needed, but I avoid that one because PayPal is a lot faster and safer.
Sure. Awesome. Yeah. Once I get I have to throw a couple more reptile enclosures in my room. Once I have that done and I can figure out space, I would definitely love to get a couple prints for you and throw those in there. I think that'd be really cool.
So I'd be down. You said you're in Michigan, right?
Yeah, currently in Michigan. Yep, exactly.
So I'm going to, I don't know if I'm going to do it this year because I have several trips that I had planned in the past that I have to do still.
Yeah.
But I'm shooting for Michigan, ideally the beginning of 2022.
Nice. I'm throughout here. I'm always traveling down to see family down in Cleveland. And then, like I said, I think I said Hermitage over Hamburg at the beginning, but like I have family that's right on the border at Hermitage in PA. So I go down there and visit them too. So I'm always traveling back and forth between there. So within that radius, but yeah, definitely. Well, I know a buddy of mine, he vends in Hamburg. So really? He's been telling me, Mike Novy from Rainforest Junkies. So he's been telling me to get down there and definitely check it out a little bit and see what's down there.
Does he have a lot of the red-eyed tree frogs in that?
Yep. Oh yeah.
So I know who that was. I talked to him not this past show. I think it was 2 or 3 shows ago. About like all the frogs. Is he the one with like the purple red-eyed tree frogs?
Yeah, the bubble gums and everything like that. Yeah.
So I've talked to him a few times. He's really cool, really smart man, and definitely gave me a lot of tips on like if I ever got into keeping them.
Yeah, no, I mean, even bioactive stuff, like you said, bioactive stuff you're working into. I mean, he's your guy. I mean, he's the guy that I learned from ever since I started going to reptile shows, probably 10 years ago now. Wow. I mean, he was one of the first guys that I met in Cleveland, and I mean, we just hit it off. And I mean, he never took me like some people would, like being someone young, you know, at the time, and being like, yeah, whatever with this person. I mean, he saw that I was interested, and I would sit around his table for like a couple hours, and we would just talk about different animals and stuff like that. And he was surprised how much I knew at the time about everything like that. So we just kind of hit off a good relationship where, yeah, it's a blast. He's actually shooting. Now we're getting into, like, he used to compose music. So now we're trying to get into, so now he's going to help me finalize the final edit for like this podcast intro and stuff like that. So we're trying to do some really fun things. So it's a good time. Yeah. It's always a good time with him. But thank you again, Nate. I really appreciate this. This has been amazing. Everyone, thank you guys so much. I'm going to leave links down below. So definitely check out Nathan Jordan's stuff. Definitely reach out for prints, any questions you have or anything like that. I mean, he's a wealth of knowledge, as you guys can see. So really cool having you on. Wish you all the best with everything that you're going to be doing with the coming shoots. Have some fun in Texas, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, thank you again for having me. I'm definitely down to do it again if you want. And hopefully sometime in the future, I'll get to come out and see you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely should coordinate something down the line for sure. Definitely keep in touch. But thank you guys again for watching. If you could do me a couple favors besides checking out Nathan's stuff, if you could like the video and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it, as well as hit the notification bell so you know when I upload things like this. This one's probably going to be rolling out in April, so it's March 14th right now, daylight savings time right now. So we're skipping on an hour of sleep right now, but it all worked out. But yeah, definitely check us out. Definitely see all of our stuff. It would really mean a lot to both of us. Thank you guys again for watching, and until next time, we will see you guys soon.